Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us here for King County's Fall 2015 Employee Town Hall. I'm Natasha Jones, Director of Customer Service for King County Executive Constantine. Our topic today is a mouthful, so let me tell you what it is. Changing the way we recruit, develop, support, and empower employees to help us become the best run government in the nation. So no pressure there. Joining us today to talk about this topic is three great folks here. I'm going to start with Executive Constantine, which you all should know. King County Executive Dow Constantine, you're in the middle of your second term. Thank you for joining us for this. Nancy Bonanno-Grinnan is the Director of our Human Resources Division, and this is kind of your second tour of duty at King County. You were at Kitsap County before this, and you were with us before that as the Labor Relations Manager, so welcome back.
Thank you.
And our final person here on the panel is Scott Welch, who is the Global Corporate Relations Manager for Columbia Sportswear down in Portland. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Scott because he's kind of new to us. He directs the Global Corporate Relations Program for Columbia, and they have about 4,300 employees. His role includes managing all of their nonprofit partnerships, developing seasonal cause marketing campaigns, coordinating all of their internal communications, and overseeing their philanthropic programs within the Columbia family of sportswear brands. So thank you also for making the drive up to join us today.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Executive Constantine. So back in 2014, you announced this pretty ambitious goal to make King County the best run government in the nation. The first question is clearly, what were you thinking?
Yes.
No, I'm kidding. Why was that a priority for you?
Well, you'll remember, and many of our employees will remember, that when I came into office, we were in the depths of a recession, and our costs were growing quite dramatically faster than our revenues. And so we set about, as our main job at that time, to reform old inefficient practices, to put the county back on sound financial footing so we could continue to deliver services in a time of financial constraint, and to restore public trust. And together we have succeeded in that. And as our reform agenda, as we call that, has continued to evolve, it was really just all around trying to figure out how we could do the best job possible. And around 2014, that got distilled down to the notion of becoming the best run government. Now, why best run government? Because it's not very aspirational to become the second best run government, right? You know, I mean, if you're going to set a goal, it might as well be to be the best. That doesn't mean perfection, because that is an unrealistic goal. And in fact, we don't want to demand perfection. We want people to take some risks in order to create positive change. Sometimes risks pay off. Sometimes those risks allow us to learn a lesson that will benefit us in the future. But the way you create a best run government, the way you do your best job, is by embracing continuous improvement, by engaging our employees to be able to innovate and supporting them in that, and by creating a workplace culture where our employees feel valued. They feel that their contributions broadly are valued by their coworkers, by their managers, by the people of King County. You can't do any of this, of course, without employees. They are the key, you are the key, you in this room, to making all of this work. You're the ones on the front lines, you're the ones who know how to deliver the services you've been charged with delivering, and very importantly to this conversation, you're the ones who can identify what could be done better. Through your experience and your creativity, you can help us make this government the best run. So every so often folks stop me out here in the halls of the Chinook building, or I'll talk with people when I'm doing one of my walk in the shoes of the county employee visits. And employees will tell me excitedly about some change that they've been able to make in their workplace, in the processes, in the way in which we're delivering for the people of King County. And we want that to be the universal experience for our employees. That whether you're a bus driver, you're working at a public health clinic, whether you're working at the jail or in the executive's office, that you are free and you are encouraged to bring your creativity to the job with you every day and to help us become better at doing what we do.
Excellent. All right, and I'm going to kind of piggyback on that a little bit and turn to Nancy, because as Executive Constantine kind of alluded to, we've undertaken this really big initiative here, Best Run Government, and a big piece of that is Best Run Government employees. I don't know if that's trademarked or anything yet. We'll work on that.
We will work on that.
Yeah, there's kind of 4 goals though with that to make this happen. So one is making King County this workplace where people want to come to work, and for the people who are already here working, we want them to stay and grow their skills and become stronger at whatever it is that they do. We also want to enable people to come here and really do interesting work, to really achieve something new and exciting and different. And that is possible, contrary to popular belief. You can do that in county government. And we really want them to excel at their work. So how are we going to make that a reality? Because that has not been, I would say, it's safe to say, it has not been our history. That has not always been our approach here. How is Best Run Government employees going to get us there?
Before I talk about what we're doing to make that a reality, I'm going to turn to Cameron over there to show us a short video that talks about how we've made some changes over the course of time.
King County is the most populous county in Washington and the 13th most populous in the United States. More than 2 million people call King County home. We're the economic engine for the state. And we're changing. In 1970, the population was 1.2 million. Only 8% of residents were people of color, and less than half of women worked outside of the home. King County employed almost 3,000 people. We used typewriters, the electronic calculator had just been invented, and email was almost 20 years away. 45 years later, our population has almost doubled. We've become more diverse, and now 2/3 of women are working. King County government has also changed. We have more than 13,000 employees, most of whom are represented by a union. Our employees are proud to serve the public. We are more diverse than the available workforce, but less diverse than the community we serve, and even less diverse at the higher end of the pay scale. We are older than the average U.S. employer, and each year, more employees become eligible to retire. As these employees begin to retire, we need to develop our current employees, retain our older, experienced employees by giving them continuing opportunities to grow, providing options like phased-in retirement to ensure knowledge transfer. We also need to recruit the next generation of county employees that will eventually take their place. They're younger and more diverse. 1/3 were born outside the United States, and for many, English isn't their first language. They expect different things out of employment, and they have different goals and experiences. To recruit and retain them, we need to change our strategy. Offer employment experiences that match their goals, and highlight what makes us different, because at King County, our diversity makes us stronger. New ideas move us forward, and we serve our residents better when we understand them better. The needs of our residents are changing, and we're changing to meet those needs. King County, we listen, we improve, we deliver.
So don't you want to work there?
Yes. Where do I apply?
Well, we are working on getting a new NeoGov replacement so that
Yay.
when you do apply, it's less clunky. What the video didn't mention is that our basic employment structure was set forth in 1969, largely perfected in 1972, and every change that we've made since then have been in reaction to state or federal law changes, or because we've been sued and had big class action lawsuits. So not proactively looking at what do our employees need, both now and in the future. And as the video pointed out the demographics of who we're recruiting, what they want out of an employment experience isn't necessarily what we put in place in 1972. So in answer to your question, to be the best run government, what we've heard from that big, hairy, audacious goal is really to create a work environment for employees to thrive. So they can do their best every day, that they know their value, that their work is valuable, that they have opportunities to learn and grow, and ultimately they can bring their true, authentic selves to work and not hide behind a mask or facade. So that's what we're aiming for. And we've got 4 big initiatives under that best run government employees that will soon be trademarked. So first, we want to improve our recruitment, hiring, onboarding, and promotional practices so that we can attract and retain a workforce that is as diverse at all levels as the communities we serve. Second, as Natasha pointed out, we want to ensure employees have clear pathways up and across the organization and learning paths to get through those different pathways. We need to improve our employee communication about that, and so that they can understand how and what decisions have been made and ultimately have some input into those. All of that will help employees feel more connected to the organization and ultimately more engaged, so that they will use their every ounce of discretionary intellect when they come up to work. Third, and this is a big, beefy one that's starting in October, is our Office of Labor Relations and the Coalition of County Unions are going to be developing a total compensation package. It's really looking at how we reward, what's our reward package, what are all the terms of compensation, base wages, leaves. What we know right now is we have a very rich compensation package. We need to make sure it's predictable and sustainable, but it doesn't give us choice. So what I wanted at 22, I may not want at 52. But those of us, depending upon where we are in our life cycle, we don't have choices about that. And then finally, the last big effort is those of us who are behind the scenes as your friendly HR, systems bureaucrats, we need to work better to have a more seamless employee support system. So we're using lean tools and techniques and using an ESG lens to better improve that process. The very first step for employees, though, is to fill out and participate in the All-Employee Survey. That is launching September 14th, both in paper and in email. And we really want to hear from you. We want to know how you perceive and experience King County employment now so that we can do better by you. And those employees who are represented by the Coalition of County Unions will be receiving a total compensation survey in October. So again, make your voices heard so that we can improve the work experience.
And the input from the survey will be used to kind of fine-tune all of the work that we're doing.
Absolutely.
Okay. Scott, I'm going to turn to you now because, one, you're getting like this probably interesting kind of primer on King County that maybe you weren't expecting today. There will be no test later, so don't worry about that. But I think
will welcome your application.
Yeah. I think it would be interesting. The part I loved about the video was that it showed where we were when we first started and what the demographics were like and the community was like and our workforce. It would be fascinating to see that side by side with Columbia because you guys have been around more than 75 years. So what your workforce and the realities of your industry were like 75 years ago would probably be a fascinating discussion. But what I want to talk about is how Columbia approaches some of these things that we're grappling with right now. So you guys have this this tagline that I love: relentlessly trying stuff. That's actually what it says, which sounds a lot like our continuous improvement. How do you work towards all of this employee engagement work and make sure that your employees are engaged and have the opportunity to do some of the things that we're working on with our employees as well?
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for bringing me up to King County. We may be in Portland, but we do have a big presence and interest in King County. Some of you may have been to our store in downtown Seattle. Many of our key partners like REI are located in Seattle, and you guys also share Portland's status as kind of a hub for the outdoor and athletic industry with so many different brands. In fact, I'm going to go visit K2 after I leave here. So thanks. Columbia does have a lot of similarities as far as growth. We have grown from a single company to a portfolio of 5 different companies now. We've got somewhere around 5,000 employees globally. We're in 122 different countries. We share some of the same challenges around diversity being located in Portland. While we're a multicultural company, we may not be that multicultural at each office at the company. We also are trying to, a lot of the employees that you're trying to recruit are those same consumers that we're trying to recruit. So those same type of value statements and ways to connect, we share those. My job, my department's mission, as odd as it might sound, is to build an emotional connection to our consumers, retailers, and employees. And it may sound weird, but 90% of all the decisions that you make are emotional and not rational. And if you think differently, you're just trying to rationalize your emotional decisions. So for us at Columbia, typically, and this is a Prana shirt, so this won't work. Prana is one of our brands. But normally our logo is on our heart. That's right here on the chest. And so when you wear apparel and you think about any of the brands that you buy, it's sort of a value statement for you. It represents your values in some way. It represents who you are, who you want to be as a person. And as an outdoor company, it's very important for us to share our values to our consumers and to our employees. So building that emotional connection is really why we do all the different community investment programs that we do. And we feel that employee engagement is one of the most important parts of that because our company is our people. And we have to be an innovative company in order to survive. Hopefully you've seen some of the great new innovations that we've come out with. But really it's a challenge to always keep creative people creating and keep them innovative, to recruit people to Portland, to take advantage of the multicultural environment that we have at Columbia. And really the best ideas that ever come out of Columbia come out of conference calls that have people from 8 different countries on it, because you get the perspective through those type of conversations that you just can't get at headquarters.
Thank you. And I'm going to come back to you in just a second, but I want to turn back to Executive Constantine because you reminded me of something. You've got this business to run. We've got this government to run. You've got 1 or 2 or 9,000 things on your plate to deal with every day. Why focus on this? Because there are many things pulling your attention and where you could be focusing your energies right now. Right.
Well, first I want to pause and thank Scott and thank Columbia for being here today. It's wonderful to have your perspective and validation. I appreciate very much. We're the kind of place where people come to work for more than just the pay and benefits, right? Because you can do better in a lot of places in the private sector. It's a little more stable and secure, but the pay is not as high as people with equivalent training or education might get elsewhere in the economy. But people come to work at King County because they want their work to have meaning, because they want to create cleaner water, or they want to have healthier kids, or they want to help the homeless get back on their feet. They want the work that they are doing to earn a paycheck, to earn benefits, to also have meaning, to make their community a better place. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times we get in the way. The structures that we've created get in the way of them being able to do that. Just as sometimes, perhaps often, depending on where you work, you hear from members of the public who are frustrated by red tape, by the inability to get to the final answer, to hurdles placed in their way. The same thing happens to employees. You know that you want to do something to help this member of the public get what they need to make the community better, but the way your job is set up isn't allowing that to happen. So I see my job, I see our job as tearing down those barriers so that our employees can be fully engaged, so that every day you can be more satisfied with being able to deliver for the people we're serving. I think that will increase our customer satisfaction from members of the public, and I think it will also increase the satisfaction of each of us working here at King County.
So I'm going to channel the voices that I've heard in some of the outreach that we've done around the Equity and Social Justice Initiative and the strategic plan around that. And we do hear from employees who say, That sounds good, but in my area, I've tried to do things differently. I've tried continuous improvement, or I had this great idea and I was bursting at the seams and I went to my supervisor and I got shut down. How do we help that employee, and also how do we help those supervisors, because we know they're out there, right, who are struggling with this. It's a pretty big shift in what we're asking from them, because a lot of them have had very strong careers not doing it that way. So how do we help their employees and also those supervisors kind of embrace this approach of kind of shared decision making, which is very different from some people.
So this is the flip side of the story I told about the employee stopping me in the hall and telling me excitedly about the change they're making in their job. I also hear from employees who really want to make change but are being frustrated because they don't have an avenue to do it. That is not the kind of employer we want to be, and that is not what we're going to settle for. One, because it makes our employees less satisfied, and two, because it means we are not able to be the best run government and deliver the most service for the dollars available. Nobody in our organization should have to feel as though they're being prevented from doing their best. No one should have to feel ignored or silenced or discounted because they want to do things differently than we've done them before. And I don't want our supervisors or managers to feel as though it's tremendously risky for them to open up and embrace new ideas coming from the people they manage. I have met a lot of employees who are so passionate about the innovative work they're doing. And they keep up with the research, they keep up with what's going on nationally in their field. They want to bring those innovations that they're seeing elsewhere to King County. I encourage supervisors to really seek out those employees and listen to what they have to say and find ways in which we can try new ideas, surface those ideas. Some of them are not right for us, but a few of them will be right for us. And we have to be open to that if we're going to continuously improve. Coach the employees by asking them questions. Anticipate problems that might arise because change is inherently threatening to people, and help employees manage through that change. Work through these new ideas and test them, and if they work, great. And as I said at the start, if they don't work, then we know one of the things that doesn't work, and we can move on to the next one. This is how improvement happens, right? It is a series of experiments. It's being open to new ideas, and we have to be open to new ways of working and new ways of thinking, and be a fully inclusive workplace if we are going to be successful in the future, because that is what the new generation of employees is going to expect from their employer.
So Nancy, there's research on everything, so I'm sure there is research on employee engagement. What is it saying about, what's the best practice, I guess, to do this? How do we go about implementing this in our business, in our government? What do we know about employee engagement, how it works really for the, you said it was, some things are done by the heart and some things you do because you're trying to be rational about it. What do we know about employee engagement?
Well, I'm actually not going to answer your question. I'm going to make the audience answer your question. So we're going to try a little experiment. We may fail forward a little bit on this one. It's a great question, but each of you has under your seat and now up on the screen a question that we want you to answer by following one of the elaborate instructions that are up there. So in the 2012 King County Employee Engagement Survey, which did we say as King County employees had the strongest relationship to how we were feeling engaged at work? If you weren't here in 2012, because I see one looking quizzical employee out there, just make a guess, an educated guess.
Supervision, respect, customer service, or mission and goals?
And you have 3 different ways to respond.
I'm assuming we're calling the prosecuting attorney to find out if we owe royalties for that.
Exactly. We'll look into that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the answer?
Okay.
Oh.
Oh. Somebody changing their answers, submitting now. There's still a huge winner there.
I
Supervision.
think supervision,
Yeah.
and that isn't a big surprise. And in fact, that is the number. Not only did we respond in King County, you are correct. That 2012, we all said that one of the biggest drivers of our engagement was our relationship with our supervisor, and that is borne out by the research. How our supervisor demonstrates whether they care about us at work, whether we get regular, meaningful performance feedback on our performance, hopefully more positive than negative. Knowing that our supervisor supports us in our goals for advancement with coaching and stretch opportunities, and that the supervisor handles conflict on teams and holds people accountable. All of those are critical to employees feeling connected to the work. Being a supervisor is one of the hardest jobs. Being that people leader, you have to develop a whole set of skills that the more that you use them, the better you get. You have to learn more about how your team works, how they process information, and that way you can get the best out of them, with them, getting their best thinking. So we're working in central HR and across the government to better support our supervisors. We launched the Leadership Academy a couple years ago. We've actually put through almost 1,000 supervisors, managers, and aspiring leaders into that. It's a broad brush orientation program. We're currently working on some deeper dives in how to be a coach, how to lead through coaching. And those will come in 2016, but our lean team has been offering those already. What else drives engagement? We know having access to growth and learning and development opportunities, it's a big driver, and we heard that in the 2012 survey. And that's why Executive Constantine and the council refunded learning and development. And in this last year, we've actually offered 171 classes, and we've trained over 6,400 employees. And that was from zero of a centralized training function. So that has been huge. One other thing that we've got, we launched this last year, was a Bridge Academy. It was an internal internship fellowship program that allowed employees to go through training, do a role immersion, take on different roles so that they could learn and grow. And we actually have just hired on a special duty one of those Bridge Fellows to come and run the Bridge Fellowship program within Central HR, and she starts in a couple of weeks. Transit HR implemented a number of changes during the most recent base chief promotional exam that they ran. This was part of the Partnership to Achieve Comprehensive Equity, their recommendations, and they did an amazing number of resume and skill building workshops for any employee, any transit operator who was interested in applying for the promotional opportunity. We've just opened in Central HR a employee resource center where any employee can drop in and get resume and interview skill building. So we're working on some of those drivers that we heard from employees, but we can do a lot more. We need to make it easier for frontline employees to have access to training, to be able to take the time off. We do hear that a lot. You have a lot of training, but we can't get the time. And the problem is, if we hire the best and we don't allow them that time to learn and grow, we just make them stupid and their skills stale, and that's not okay. And they become disengaged, or they leave to go somewhere else. So there's not necessarily Columbia, but there's a lot we can do, and we are doing to make King County the best place for employees.
Well, this is a good transition back to Columbia, because we are clearly seeing that employee engagement is most important to us to innovate and be better at what we do. For Columbia Sportswear, you guys are in a really competitive industry and have been for a really long time. And I know that there are some companies who kind of crunch the numbers and say, you know, I can spend that money. I would rather not spend money on employee engagement. I'd rather spend it on some other way of beating my competitor, or innovating my products, or doing something else. Columbia Sportswear is clearly crunch the numbers differently and come up with a different answer than some of these other companies. Why do you guys find that, it's important for your bottom line to do employee engagement and to make that investment when other companies are like, nice to have, not necessary?
Well, so when people come to Columbia, oftentimes the first thing they see is our sand volleyball pit. And we have a beach volleyball league. We actually have 2 leagues, the Who Cares League and the We Care League, depending on how competitive you are. But the reason why, it's not the only reason why, but one of the reasons why we offer that program and a ton of other employee engagement programs like trainers, and we have whitewater rafting trips and ski trips and that kind of stuff, is we have, as of last week, 880 outdoor and athletic companies in Portland alone. So Portland is the epicenter of outdoor and athletic. We have Nike World Headquarters, Adidas North American Headquarters, Keen World Headquarters, Icebreaker North American Headquarters, Danner, Doc Martens, the list goes on and on. We all want the best employees, and it is a competitive quagmire in Portland. So if you aren't a cool place to work, you will not have the best employees, because creative people have a choice. And it's interesting when you guys talked about innovation, we also thrive on innovation, and we want people to be innovative, but we don't want it to be chaos, because chaos isn't necessarily progressive. So one way to help sort of guide that is really by getting your values out. And if your employees understand your values, then their innovative ideas likely will fall along those values. But even when they don't, one of my colleagues at Yakima in Portland, we're on a University of Oregon's committee, and we're building a program for the outdoor and athletic area. And they asked him what was the #1 skill he looks for in innovation, and he said, "I need my people to be able to fail as quickly and cheaply as possible."
Wow.
Which was interesting, but when you think about it in our world, that's what you need, because if you get married to an idea and you just keep working on it, trying to make it work when it's never going to work, you got nowhere. And being able to test something and quickly figure out if it's going to work is oftentimes super efficient and great.
That's I'm hearing Fred Jarrett, and our deputy county executive. His mantra is "fail forward," so that definitely echoes that. We're not a business, clearly, public agency, but I know you've got a budget that you've got to submit every couple of years now. How do we make the business case for making investments in employee engagement? We don't have as many competitors as you guys have in Portland, but maybe we do. I guess we do, yeah. But how do we make the business case here in King County as a public agency?
Well, I mean, first of all, I thought those were some really great insights about the nature of the business of taking risk and how to guide risk by being clear about what the values are that we're trying to serve. I loved everything you said except University of Oregon.
My wife's a Husky.
That's good. Okay.
Forgiven.
The nuts and bolts are really that we need employees to be engaged so we can do a better job for the people, right? So we can, the things that help us do that are, higher attendance and better productivity. There are fewer complaints and grievances and lawsuits and safety incidents on the job. There are lower turnover. Those are all things that affect our budget, and they affect our ability to serve the 2 million people of King County. And we have numbers that tell us that those things are true. Second, though, we get to show taxpayers that we are delivering the most service for their tax dollar. And when that service is delivered in a way that inspires confidence, when people feel they're being treated well and they're getting good value, the people will be more willing to fund all those unmet needs that we know exist out there in our county today. But third, when employees are able to deliver services well and efficiently and provide a good customer experience, they are more satisfied with their jobs. And I believe that is a good in and of itself and separate from the other values that I just described. I think that when employees are engaged, and we talked about respect, when they feel respected and they respect their coworkers and their managers and supervisors, and they feel supported, they can and they will do a better job, and they will be more satisfied with the work they do. I don't know if any of you got to read the recent opinion piece in the New York Times. It was on the 28th of August, and it was fascinating in that they clearly were anticipating our employee town hall today. It was by Barry Schwartz, and it's called Rethinking Work. And overall, it's a description, it's a discussion of exactly what we're talking about today, and talking about the economist, philosopher Adam Smith, and how his notion that people respond solely to material compensation is simply not borne out in reality. That compensation is necessary but not sufficient. That if you're going to spend half of your life doing something, it ought to be something worthwhile and something you feel good about. He said, how can we do this? Giving employees more of a say in how they do their jobs, making sure we offer them opportunities to learn and grow, encouraging them to suggest improvements, listening to what they say. I would encourage you to find this piece and read it. It really, I thought, neatly summed up a lot of what we're working to bring to our work here at King County. That's the workplace we want to be. No matter where you are in the organization, not only are you fairly compensated, which is the threshold question, but you are fully appreciated, and your contributions are valued, and you are empowered to succeed and to grow, and that you find motivation and meaning in your work even beyond the paycheck. That's what we want employment at King County to be, and we want it to be that for an increasingly diverse, dynamic, new generation of workers that really reflects the changes that we're seeing all across King County.
I'm going to digress for just a second because you reminded me of a person I met when I first came to the county, and she worked in finance, just spreadsheets all day long, which I was like, oh my gosh, but she loved it. And I said, why do you like doing your work? And she said, well, I get to, get us a better rate on our loans. Not real sexy work or anything, but she said, when I do that, when I can help us get a better rate on our loans, we can stretch our dollars. We can stretch our taxpayer dollars and help a few more people. And I love being able to come to work to help a few more people every day because someone helped me like that once. Yeah. And first I got all verklempt. And then I was like, that's so awesome. And I think that really sums up a lot of why people come to work at the county, because we can do good while we're doing our work. Scott, how do you, besides the ball pit or the volleyball pit?
Which we're not getting one of those. We do own some beaches, but we're not creating an artificial one.
And risk management would be all over that. But how do you enable your employees to do that in your line of work? How do you get them engaged? What do you do to give them those opportunities?
Well, first, just to add on to the great points that you just made, I think all those were awesome points. We just implemented a new business software globally at Columbia, SAP software, which has been a 6-year nightmare dream, depending on the day. It is now awesome and working well, but as part of that, we really had to sit back and do standard operating procedures for every single task we do as a company and write it out and figure out how to implement it into the software. And at that time, we made a really conscious decision to do employee outreach and training to train every employee about basically the entire business. So you knew, how do we make a fleece jacket? What are all the steps involved? Where do you fit in the process? And at first, people were like, oh, God, man, why do I even care? And why do I have to go to this thing and another training? But it's really made us a much stronger company because now people know why they're there. And it's not just not just to get a loan rate, but understanding how that then affected all these other steps. And so people now see each other in the hall and they see where they all fit. And I think that's helped a lot of ways, and it's helped create that value. It was a bit of an expense and a challenge for HR to do it globally, but thank God for video and the internet, which has made things much easier. Other things is we are also trying to attract younger and more diverse employees, and at the same time attract them as customers as well. And what we've really found is that engagement is emotion, and it's hard to create an engagement program that engages everyone with the correct emotion. It might be happiness or frustration or anger or whatever. So giving people a choice and having them help define it has been our most successful way. So at Columbia, as a brand, we could do community investments in a million things. There's tons of social problems. It's overwhelming just to even see. So we want to choose issues that affect our business. So for us, kids spend 8 minutes a day outdoors in America. That's not good for our business. We want to change that. Why don't they go outdoors? Because there's no outdoor education. So we want to change that, and we want to make sure there's an outdoors. But that may not be the biggest issue in Mumbai, or it may not be the biggest issue in Bangalore, or in Ho Chi Minh City, or in Taipei. So our local offices, they choose whatever those local issues are that they want a community invest in. And they can be whatever they want. They can't be political or religious, because we're not trying to condone any party or religion over any other, and that sometimes becomes an issue. But giving them that freedom and giving the millennials especially a way to sort of create their own engagement package gives them that investment to want to stay with you.
That's very cool. Well, we've heard about how important supervision is, or lack thereof, to people's feeling good when they come to work. We're going to take a look at a quick video that's from King County's Jail Health Services, and it shows how one group of employees worked with their supervisors to use some lean tools and take ownership of some of the problem solving that they were facing in their organization.
Everything that we do touches all disciplines. The only thing we really don't do is we don't do direct patient care, but we support our providers in the other disciplines that do provide patient care.
I'm working the board at RJC. A lot of times I'm the one running the board and processing the cards through, so I'm talking to people on their problems. I put cards up on the board myself.
In the past, we would always have an issue, bring it up to the supervisor. Supervisor provides a solution, and we just do it. And this here, we can take ownership of any problems that we see. We come up with a proposed solution, work with our supervisor, other staff, and come up with a solution.
I used to be the type of supervisor, they'd bring me the problem and I'd fix it. I'd say, I know how to fix this, and I would fix the problem, at least how I thought I was fixing the problem. But so I've had to not be the problem solver, which has been a challenge for me. But it's also helped a lot. It's helped me grow as a supervisor, and my listening skill with staff have increased quite a bit, and communication has changed quite a bit.
I've become more of a coach, and that's something that previously as an AS3 I wasn't really involved in. They would give me a problem, I would have to go and check with somebody to make sure we can, or how we want to fix it, and then come back to them with a solution. Now, I can just tell them, let's put it up on the board, let's start coaching this, let's try and get our problem statement, what kind of solution do you have?
It's really nice. I've seen a real increase in morale. It's enabling the staff to, look at problems and solve it, and kind of get a better feel of, thinking outside of the box and more about what the program needs.
But now with these weekly huddles and any problems that people bring up, it usually involves other team members, so then you will work with them and try to come up with solutions together.
We get to kind of drive what's happening in our department. We get to make decisions about what things are being talked about. We get to have a forum to say, these are the issues that we want to get solved.
I love watching videos like that because it makes it seem like, well, in 2.5 minutes they solved it. Isn't that great? I know the folks over there at Jail Health who did that, and it was a long slog for them to work through that and figure out how it was going to work within their business processes and get all of their folks engaged. And some people are like, oh, why do we have to do this? The old way worked just fine. Why are we doing this? So I love seeing the success of that and them working through it. Scott, you touched on something in your last answer that I want to go back to. You said you have global offices. You mentioned Ho Chi Minh City and Bangalore and all of these places around the world. You do have kind of a multicultural workforce. What role does diversity play in that? You've said a couple of things, but could you talk a little bit more about how diversity plays a role in the work that you do and what that means for your organization as you guys prepare, to continue to compete here in the coming decades?
Well, we first started to think about it when, most companies, we started to try to figure out what was our company culture. And then that opened up the discussion of, well, what if we're multicultural? And why would you want to create a culture out of multicultural when multicultural may be your business advantage? And so it was figuring out how to embrace that multicultural perspective and bring it in when Portland is not as multicultural as some other places. It is not the least, though. I understand Pittsburgh is the least, which surprised me. And our industry, frankly, has been pretty poor at reaching out to people of color, and only has recently begun to do so when they realized that 30% of the future population, at the least in the United States, were people of color, and our industry better address that. And REI had done a survey and realized that when they surveyed their members of color and said, "What's the outdoors mean to you?" And I'm a sad example today, white dude in a plaid shirt was the answer. So. And that's no different than when we wanted people of color to work for us, because they saw our industry as a bunch of white dudes in plaid shirts. And so we had to figure out how to change that, and also how to add maybe some more fashion so that we could sell to other people than just white guys. So it's been a huge issue, and it's been simple things as simple as, like, what kind of images are we putting out, and who are we focusing on, who are we featuring in our marketing, who are we featuring in whenever we're highlighting employees or sending out employee communications. How are we highlighting what's being done at our offices around the globe versus always having the messaging come from headquarters and talking about some new headquarter initiative that no one really out there. They're like, we're on an island, we don't care about your latest initiative, talk about us. The other thing that really helped build the engagement was really propping up what our offices were doing. We had an office in Taipei that they were going to go do a project that was in basically a big, huge pond, and a typhoon came. And we were like, hey, don't think you have to go out and work in the typhoon. They're like, we're in a pond, who cares? We're already wet. So they went out and did it, and when we sent that news blast around, we do these digital news blasts to the whole company, then every other liaison office is what we call them, they wanted to do a project. They're like, wow, look at Taipei, got all this love, we want to do this. So it created a spirit of competition, but the competition was great because it wasn't defined, where we didn't say, hey, your project has to be this long, and you have to touch this issue, and you have to wear these shirts or whatever. It was let them figure it out. We did support it with apparel. We're an apparel company, so we can give our teams hats and shirts, and we let them think of cool names that define themselves. We had one team from India that had a Gandhi quote, and we had to actually get that approved through legal to make sure that we wouldn't get sued from a Gandhi quote. But it's really just allowing that kind of freedom and embracing that, and it's some of the benefits that have come from that have been incredible, and business benefits that the company never would have thought of had we not done it.
Very cool. And I know here in King County, we struggle with some of the same things. The population of the Pacific Northwest, Portland's included, but here also not super diverse at a certain level, but actually more so. I think is it Bellevue that surpassed us in terms of diversity recently, that has surpassed Seattle. So it's more so than people realize. I think our reputation, we've got to get that out of people's minds. So, and
don't just think that you're limited to your own workforce. So a lot of our great projects, especially in areas where we don't have a large workforce, maybe it's 10 or 12 people in an office. Well, how can we do a volunteer project with a key vendor or a key stakeholder? Or here in the States, that we have key accounts like REI or Dick's Sporting Goods or the Sports Authority, and we often have an office in their headquarters city, so we can have a showroom. So in most of those cities now, we want to adopt like a local stream or a local park and figure out ways that we can go out with our counterparts from that key account and just hang out as humans and do a restoration project and not try to sell anything or show anything, but actually get to know each other, but also show Columbia's value, because no other brand is doing that with those key accounts.
Yeah, that's definitely an area that we've talked about. How do we show our values more, not only to our existing employees, but ones who may consider coming to work for us. How are we doing in terms of diversity? I know at certain levels of the organization, super diverse, even more so than the population as a whole. Other levels of the organization, not so much, and that's something that we've grappled with and trying to figure out how do we, change those numbers a little bit and start reflecting the communities that we serve across the region.
I would say we're not doing enough because we aren't moving the needle on the numbers in our leadership ranks. And that's really, the executive has put out as one of our goals in HR is that we want a workforce that reflects at all levels the very diverse communities we serve. And as Natasha pointed out and we saw in the video, we know we have a very diverse employee population, but they tend to be at the entry-level jobs, lower paid, and as you go up in the ranks of salary and in leadership ranks, we become more white, but fairly diverse in gender. So we've got our work to do. We need to do a better job in recruiting. We have to go beyond post and praying, which we still often do. We actually have to recruit and do more significant outreach. We need to scrub the min quals out of our jobs.
Can you explain what that means?
It's a technical HR term. The
Yeah.
minimum qualifications, we have very high minimum qualifications. And they often become artificial barriers for many people of color getting into a field. They aren't necessary to be successful day one on the job. They just happen to be the minimum qualifications of the person who retired after 30 years on the job. So if we continue to hire that way, we're going to continue to hire retirees from the city of Seattle. So, and that's a lot of what we've been doing over the years. So we can do better in recruitment. We can do better in development. And then the final is, even when we get a more diverse population of employees, we have to create a more welcoming and inclusive work environment. And that means all of us here, how we show up every day and the choices that we make and how we treat each other is critical. And there's a lot of agencies who are working really systematically to increase our cultural competence to be able to understand and value differences. But it's something we have to tackle every day. And we've got a lot of work to do.
And I think what sometimes gets lost in our discussions of that is that when we do that, when we make the workplace better for everyone who works there, it really does make it better for everyone. It's not like, well, just people of color are really happy now and everyone else, sorry. It's everyone benefits when the whole organization is more welcoming and everyone can bring their whole self to the job.
And this, Nancy and I have spent a lot of time talking about this too. You know, part of the recruitment challenge, of course, is being more actively engaged recruiting outside of the county, but also when we have a diverse workforce at the entry level, being much better about giving people those training opportunities, the learning opportunities, so that they can develop into the candidates for management and leadership. We have a wonderful workforce who clearly are people who are dedicated to public service right here in our buildings, and we need to do the best job possible of showing them the path forward and giving them the resources to be candidates for leadership.
And on the minimum qualification front as well, recognizing other things that are, some people have maybe done the work in another field, so that maybe they've got a three years towards their degree, and then they just started working, and they've got 15 years of experience, but because they don't have the exact degree, we're like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do it, even though they've already been doing what we're asking them to at some other company for 10 or 15 years. Okay, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity now to ask some questions of our esteemed panel. So if you have a question, raise a hand, we'll get a microphone to you, and we'll get some questions answered, or if you want someone to elaborate on a point that they've already made. Anyone? Don't go all raising your hands at once.
Hi, I would like to ask you, a lot of what you're talking about sounds like the getting to yes, right? Getting to be able to say yes to employees. And one of the things that I think a lot of employees would say that they encounter is the no's, not from the executive's office, but from sort of the mid-level. It feels like there's some changing of hearts and minds that needs to happen. How are you going to do that, Nancy?
Well, can I start, and then you can give the actual professional answer. You know, the higher up you are in the organization, the less you have to worry about making mistakes and saying yes, right? Like, only the people of the county can fire me, so you can come to me with some harebrained idea, and I'll go, yeah, sure, let's do it. If you're a middle manager, there's a lot more, I think, concern that your supervisor is going to come down on you for having allowed a mistake to happen. We have to work that out of our practices and our culture, right? Okay.
I think you did a great job. It's going to take some time. Middle managers are in the hardest position. You know, they are responsible for results. They are stretched thin. They often have no time to talk to their employees, much less say yes or no. And we really need to shift what their role is, both for them and for their higher ups, and give them some grace of they're going to fail a little bit. If they're empowering employees to go make mistakes and to try things, that means mistakes are going to happen. And we've had, before this administration, we had a whole decade of no bad things can happen, which meant you operated out of fear. And it wasn't a pleasant place to work. So for a lot of our middle managers, that's still the mantra. So it's going to take time.
Thanks. More questions?
And can I just tag onto that?
Yeah.
We have consciously tried to get away from that no bad things can happen. The only thing I ask is, if bad things are happening, you should let me know, right? Before they can become worse. Okay.
Yes, very true. Any questions in the back here? I can get a microphone to you. No? One. Right here? Okay.
I know we previously talked about the labor negotiations and how much that impacts what we can do with our employees, particularly when it comes to total rewards. I don't think that training and development and education benefits has been a part of that previously. Is our intention going forward to make that as a part of our total rewards package? When I'm looking at our competition as the employment manager, and I look at things like Starbucks now does tuition reimbursement for part-time employees. That's what we're recruiting against. How is that going to affect our decision making? And I did hear you say that we're looking at more flexibility. Is that going to be a part of that?
No, I'd love for you to do this, even though you're not in labor relations.
So it's two answers to that. So I firmly believe tuition reimbursement is one of those benefits that should be at the table because it's a huge driver when we're competing for part-time transit operators, any kind of part-time work. We are behind the 8 ball on that, and that will help our employees learn and grow. So depending again where they are in their life cycle, that may be something they want as part of that total rewards package. But we have an obligation as the employer to ensure that our employees have training opportunities for those core technical skills, or like I said, their skills become stale, and I don't want that bargained away. So we have an obligation to ensure that that's there as a fundamental responsibility. It's a partnership. We make that available to employees, and they have to take advantage of them to stay employed and to continue to learn and grow.
And a lot of the training was something that was not bargained as part of the compensation. It was something that we provided because it's in the interests of the county as an employer. And a lot of that, most all of it, got cut during the Great Recession. And so we've been in this process, even while we're still financially challenged, of rebuilding the capacity to provide people training and education to advance in their careers.
I could talk about this with you for hours, but unfortunately we can't do it anymore today. So thank you all for joining me here today, and for especially you for joining us here from Portland. Really appreciate that. And thank you all for joining us as well. If you have any other questions or comments, you know how to reach these folks on the interoffice email. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
I would use the employee survey basically to provide my comments and feedback because it reaches the masses pretty quickly and efficiently and effectively.
To give each person a chance to, put their 2 cents out there and give feedback based on their unique perspective, I think is pretty important.
I think it's really important to participate in the survey because leadership really does want to know how we can make this organization better. I think we sometimes struggle with making that connection to how to have those conversations, and I think that the employee survey is a genuine opportunity to to hear from all staff, from all levels of the organization, for how we can make the organization better.
Just to hear my voice, and kind of just to, whether or not we all like to speak our opinion, well, most of us do, but just having the, option to, speak out and kind of let someone know how you feel and what you think about things, I think that's super valuable.
To let them know the job that we do. There's not many people that do this job short of Sheriff's Department. We just both got to go up there. It was just 2 of us call takers. We went to the Sheriff Dispatch. We do the same thing.
Because it's an opportunity to provide feedback on all aspects of our work here at King County. So our aspects of our work that we do day to day, the interactions that we have with our managers and our supervisors.
I know for our division here at the Juvenile Division, I would love for people to participate. Lack of participation doesn't help with the direction that we want to go. If we get more feedback and input from staff on how they feel about different areas within the county, I believe that we can move forward and have better results.
I think it's important to be heard as a member of the employee population, and only through everyone participating can change really be affected. Speak up, be heard, make a difference.